two changes of clothes, you're carrying what you have. And so your life just becomes very simple. And then you just are recognizing common humanity. Most people are just trying to walk that day and hope they don't get new blisters. Hope there's a bathroom when you need one. Hope there's a cup of coffee, right? Your life sort of strips down from, in many cases, being very, very complex and busy to just step by step by step. It was a beautiful experience.
Welcome back to the Blue Dragon Healing Podcast. Today we have with us Susan Hensley. Faced with the chaos of a global pandemic and her own retirement, Susan discovered art journaling, a playful, creative outlet that brought clarity and joy back into her life. Now, as a coach and author of Art for Your Sanity, she helps other people embrace life's transitions with curiosity and creativity, using art to silence the inner critic and reconnect with their authentic selves. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. So we would love to get some background and context for how you ended up in this situation and discovering the power of art journaling, because it seems like no matter what the modality is or the healing art, when people move into something like that, it's because they went through a shift, something that happened in their life.
I'm happy to share. When I discovered art journaling, I was in the middle of a 20-plus year career as executive in a corporation, spending most of the time in human resources, coaching people and coaching teams, coaching around career desires, coaching around moving up into leadership. And so I have been fortunate to be exposed to all sorts of programs or tools to help people gain more insight into themselves. And I'm a big meditator and journaler and have been for a number of years. We lived in Asia for a while as part of my career. I believe in how important it is to center ourselves, to really try and quiet our minds. And I think part of what we're here to do is to learn better ways to navigate some of the challenges of being a human on the planet at this time, to learn and grow and help others. When I fell very accidentally into art journaling, I was not searching for anything. I didn't actually think I had a need, if you will. And then it ended up being one of the reasons I actually shifted my career. I worked with a colleague who is an artist, actually produces art that she sells. People come to her and they commission her. Art journaling is not about that. It is all about process and not at all about an end product. So I want to start to differentiate that. This colleague, really an amazing and talented artist. There were a few of us standing around, and I'm sure we were all saying like, I can't draw a straight line kind of thing. So she offered to do a little Saturday morning workshop at her house just to teach some very basic art principles, color wheel or something like that. So I was one of the people who went. There were about 5 or 6 of us and went to her house. It was a rainy Saturday. And I sat in the corner and she was explaining the art wheel and there was some paint. And I started playing with the paint just on the scrap piece of paper. And I actually made a big brown mess, which anyone who knows art knows that when a person who doesn't know art gets impatient and you don't let like your blue and red or other colors dry, you end up with this big muddy looking thing. And because it wasn't about producing, it was just learning, I had the best time. It sparked real joy in me. And as part of my coaching practice then and now, I tell clients to look for things that spark joy. I actually suggest they either take a note in their phone or they carry a little notepad and just write down when something occurs in their life.
Susan, you had mentioned that before you got into art journaling that you did a lot of coaching. So I'd be curious about how and why you ended up on that path to begin with. And then once you did discover art journaling and the value of the process within and the sparking joy, what was the contrast there for you between what awakened in you in discovering that versus the approach that you had been taking up until that point?
I had a first career as a broadcast journalist,
Ah.
and I loved that. After about 11 years, when I had my son and we knew it would probably be an only child for dealing with some fertility issues, I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to do something different because I was working as a main anchor. So I was working till 11:35 every night. What I loved about news and back in the day is that it was breaking and it would be
Mm.
live and you'd get calls in the middle of the night and it was okay to work weekends. That became incompatible with the kind of mother and parent I wanted to be. In the course of building that career, sometimes clients would get brought in, and I was routinely taking over newsrooms in crisis, running newsrooms. Even though my main job was as an anchor and reporter, I was always getting tapped to
Mm.
be in leadership positions. They'd bring in consultants that would tell us what colors to wear or about makeup or different things. And I just wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be a star and be the network. It's who I
Mhm.
was, and it was my dream at the time. These consultants would say to me, they'd say, "Well, you're obviously good. You're employed. You're working through markets." They never said, "Oh, you're going to be a star." They'd say, "You're good. You're solid." But they said, "What you're really good at is working with people and organizing this newsroom. You should do that." And I got really clear that if I ever switched careers, I wasn't going to switch in a 24/7 environment, that the fun of a newsroom to me was the breaking and being out and about, not being an administrator in that world. Fast forward to advent of a child and recognizing, although this had been a dream and all my education had centered around, it was time for a change.
Mm.
I only applied one place. I didn't even have a resume. It was through a friend of a friend I got an interview. I honestly didn't know what I would be doing. So when you said, how did I end up
Yeah.
coaching? When I was hired, and my title was something like Senior Analyst of Organizational Development, and I had been through, this company flew me out like 5 times. People where I was working would say, "What are you gonna do?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." So I don't have a great answer. And this is actually what I
It's
love
good.
about life.
It's
This
good.
is, to me, the mystery of life and art journaling is you don't see it, but you need to be open to it, right?
Yeah, I think it is a great answer because what you connected for me were the dots of you had discovered in this role working on the news that what you really liked and what you really enjoyed was working with people. Or I don't know if that was what you enjoyed, but discovered that you were really good at it. Before you entered into the space of the news, were there other signs in your life that you should work with people in this sort of way?
If you go back to childhood, I always had a desire and was a leader and a helper.
Hmm.
So I can organize people, even in high school. And then in general, the style of that people tend to respond to.
Hmm.
So whether, you know it or not, because innate talents are just the water you swim in.
Sure.
Blessings or innate talents of this lifetime for me center around organizing and helping people. That's a really consistent theme.
When you were in high school, you said that you did some organizing then. Can you remember any of the things that you did or were responsible for? I'd be interested to hear.
Many of the things had to do with organizing clubs or groups like
Mm.
spirit clubs. In my junior and senior years, I was particularly good at reaching out to the younger people, the freshmen
Mm.
and sophomores, and embracing them. I was not popular at all in middle school and early school. I ended up being quite popular through reaching out to people who didn't feel like they had a voice or were noticed. And that became an early path to success, which is noticing and bringing everyone along, not excluding people, and trying to give everyone a spot and a place.
You mentioned something about spirit clubs?
I went to a fairly large high school, about 2,000 people, and so you had sports teams, and
Ah,
not
spirit.
everyone can be. So yes, you're thinking of the sort of spirit
Yeah,
for
it's
podcast.
just
No,
because of the
this is
work,
very much high school in America.
Yeah.
This is about, if you're a female, it's largely about, cheerleading, not as much sports back in the day. So
Yeah,
it
of
was
course.
about
Yeah.
that.
All right. Yeah.
That's funny though. I appreciate that. Wow.
Spirit clubs. What the heck could that
Yeah, we were channelers. We were early channelers back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh, all right. So let's fast forward. You were doing the coaching and accidentally stumbled into art therapy, and it really resonated with you. What was so different about what excited you about art therapy from the models you were using with your coaching?
Sure. Um, I'm going to answer that by talking about meditation versus creating art. I think that's one of the starkest. I mentioned early that I have a meditation practice that I've had for many years as an adult, and a written journaling practice.
Yeah.
So just in sort of that settling and finding some peace within myself. And I still have both of those practices. The big difference when I started to play with art is it was a much quicker and easier transition from my left side of my brain, which is sort of judging. Like when you're writing and written journaling, even if you're not worried about spelling, grammar, you're still doing a certain amount of discernment. Most of the time there's a date, there's a location. It's just sort of typical. You can do mind mapping and other free-flowing sort of exercises, but I would find I would be still aware, if you will. It wouldn't be quite a state of flow.
Yeah.
In meditation, you absolutely can hit flow, but a lot of the time, once again, you're really working with that judgmental brain. You're finding yourself leaving and having thoughts, and you're just coming back. That's the practice. It's just coming back, coming back, coming back. What I found when I started to play with art, and just even that first day, making that like brown, messy, soggy piece of paper, is it kicked me. I didn't know this at the time. I've now researched it, but it kicked me immediately to that right side of my brain, holistic, intuitive, with play and curiosity.
Hmm.
I found it to move me. That's what felt so magical.
Hmm. It makes a lot of sense to me, as I did go through a lot of different modalities, and I find that when I do something that's a little more involved as a meditation, it's a lot easier to separate myself from my thoughts. One thing I do
Mhm.
is qigong every day,
Mhm.
and that movement
Yeah.
does actually bring my focus into the movement and not just sitting there kind of crunched in with my thoughts. Yeah, I'm
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because you're exactly right. And different things work differently for different people, right? I mean, view of this is we're connected, but we're not the same. I think there's huge power in that connection. I've added some chanting to my
really
meditation practice.
okay.
In one of the series of chants, you're touching your fingertips together to the words. I found that can be really uh, settling in that way. What I love about this period and podcasts like yours and what's happening in general is there's so many avenues to share different modalities, different sort of twists on things, that we're able to put it out there in the world, and people can experiment and see if it strikes a chord with them. And the other thing that happens is there are points in our lives that certain things just don't work as well or in the same way. And we maybe need something new or different. And I think that spark that came up that first day playing with the paint came at a time that I think maybe the others were becoming a little stale
Hmm.
or rote. It's easier to be on autopilot some days in this world than to be fully present. I think that's common.
Where has it led you, and how has this practice integrated itself back into your overall life as you've been doing the art journaling?
It really started that day. I got curious. I have a mantra when I coach or teach workshops. It's all about play, curiosity, and self compassion. If you follow those three things, it's interesting where it takes you. So I started to just play with what we had at home. We had some crayons around the house. Critical.
Mm.
Biggest tip, do not spend a lot of money. If any of your listeners want to try this, and I have a free PDF on my website they can download, tells you how to get started. It's like there's zero barrier to entry here. Um, you want to use a really inexpensive child art supply. And the reason why is that inner critic with wherever you stop doing art, it's very hard to kick off, I have to be great with a crayon, right? Most adults don't have any expectation if they're holding a crayon that they are going to create some masterpiece. And we all have that inner critic that if you're going to play with art and art journaling, it's a really great opportunity to silence the inner critic or at least not invite it to that play date and using the things you used as a kid. And I ask people to think about what they like to get crayons, watercolors, glue sticks, and collaging, whatever it may be. It's really nice for people to get into that place of play, which isn't with a goal, right? It's process. It's just 10 minutes of playing with some color or some paint. And then you sort of see how you feel. And you may put it aside, you may throw it away, may flip a page, may do it the next day, right? So it just starts very organically with the desire to just play. And I think for adults in today's society, we don't necessarily give ourselves permission to purely play. We may do things we think are good for us. And I think many cases feel we need to be improving or getting incrementally better at something. Whereas play doesn't tend to have an objective.
So, how did you become more playful in your everyday life as a result of doing the art journaling?
I take things much less seriously. I
Mm.
described to you in the early stages a pretty serious career where I was moving through bigger markets in journalism and graduate degrees, and then a corporate career where I ended up being an executive that was 20 plus years, to I need to do something different. I quit without a plan. I did not know I would write a book on art journaling. And I take everything about myself much less seriously. If it's not play, because I can be a serious person, it's curiosity
Mm.
that I've really noticed. I'm much more open to ideas than I used to be due to art journaling.
Can you think of any new experiences that you've tried that maybe you wouldn't have done before? Did you make any changes, for example, to even the structure of how you do coaching through work as a result of it?
Yeah. So multi-part. So I'm going to do the last part first. In coaching, although I think accountability coaching can be very helpful and that helps a lot of people, I really work with my clients on curiosity. Let's take like 5 or 6 steps back and just keep sort of asking why.
Mm.
And although that's a total quality thing out of Japanese manufacturing, when you're applying it to yourself and really understanding where you may be hesitant, where you may be self-sabotaging, where you may be struggling, and using some color with that, because we don't always have the words, but we know the feeling. So I spend time asking clients now, how does that feel in your body?
Hmm.
How did you feel? Like, what
Yeah.
sensations did you experience? Did your
Mm.
heart skip a beat? Did you feel your shoulders tense?
I
Because
love
people
that.
don't always know,
Yeah.
right? You're smiling. You get that, right?
Yes, that very much so.
Yeah.
That's a big thing of what I want to do on the podcast is just to move the energy, I mean,
Yeah.
just by feeling it, we can move it. and this is how it always works. It's like
Yeah.
an acknowledgement there.
The movement is so important. So, like, first you have to even identify it's happening. And then, I mean, even in coaching, the transitions coaching, there's several segments as people move through transitions where you actually want them to stand up as they're releasing sort of a phase of who they were. The exercises like you stand up and they just start to take steps with affirmations. I am not a risk taker too. I can take sensible risks. I just made up some affirmation where they're actually taking a few steps as they work through what was maybe a negative thought to a positive way that they want to be. When you couple movement with that, so powerful.
Yeah.
So I love what you said about movement.
Every morning when I get up, I usually start listening to a sound healing, and it moves the energy a little bit, and I do release some emotions when I'm doing that for sure. But that's really more of a centering thing, and bringing my attention back to center. But when I start doing the qigong, it's like whenever I release an emotion, I have a very intense physical sensation in my body, so I know what's happening. I release like this morning, maybe like 30 different waves of emotion that all pass through just during one practice. And that brought me into such more of a clear place for the day,
Mhm.
just so much more. And it seems whenever I get tired, a lot of times it's because it's an emotional tiredness.
Yeah.
Often it's not really because my body is tired. So then I just go release the emotions and I feel awake again. Yeah.
To your point, yes, it's all that pent up emotional energy, not that your muscles need to relax or your heart or organs.
Right, and I know that, yeah, of course, there are corresponding areas of tension in the body that, you know, connect with mm, deeper issues because I've released areas of tension in my body as well, but it's a different experience. It's more like a sharper, intense sensation in one spot or another spot, whereas the emotion is like feel through the whole body all the way up the spine, you know?
Yeah.
Totally different thing, just like a live moving thing.
Hmm. So powerful. No, it is. It's all energy,
Mm.
right? And you think of what emotion drives humans to do or not do, right? I mean, it's powerful. No, that's a great description.
Have you written
Mhm.
a book before, or was this the first time you did this?
No.
How was
So
that?
back on, I always said I'd never write a book. So remember
Huh.
that first career in journalism? It's like I would never write a book. Lots
Ah.
of constrictures in education, and then I would never write a personal book. And
Huh.
what happened is after sort of like jumping off that cliff and leaving my corporate job that although I it was a great company, I worked with really great people, it just didn't fit me anymore, right? I had grown and needed to change. It was about a year after that as I was really doing some exploration, went on a pilgrimage and certain things that I
Really?
realized
Where did you go?
I did the Camino de Santiago, which is the a walk in northern Spain,
Huh.
which is all sample story, but it's fantastic. It was really helpful to break my pattern, if you will, of sort of being a human doing and get more into just being during the days.
How did it help you do that?
I'd always worked full time, right? Child, then to college and graduate school and worked, supported a family, right? I raised my son, and I always worked. And so when I stopped working with the pilgrimage, I spent 4 weeks out walking on the Camino. I would cover about 13 miles a day is what did. And you'd stay in hostels called albergues because it's northern Spain with other people doing the walk. You could only stay there if you had the credential that showed you were doing the walk. It helped me shed that previous identity
Hmm.
of having had these different careers and been a worker, and then you're meeting people from all over the world at different people, much younger, people much older, people in all sorts of different circumstances, walking for all sorts of different reasons. You're living amongst people of number of nationalities and languages who are all choosing to walk for their own reason. And most time we don't even know. You start, I mean, the irony is you go on and many people like have a reason and a goal. Why don't you can do that? And what you get out of it is very rarely what you were thinking you would get out of it.
Did you was it in English or in Spanish?
It's in whatever language you speak. The signs are marked by shells. So quite honestly, following these yellow shells and little yellow arrows.
I see.
Most of the people, because it's in northern Spain, anyone local is speaking Spanish.
Mm.
I speak some Spanish, but not fluent. Most of the people I met and became friends with who were not from the US, may have been from Australia. Many Germans and people from the Netherlands speak English really fluently. So you're meeting people who speak enough English. There certainly were a number of Asian people on it who did not speak it from both Japan and
Of
China who
course.
didn't speak a lot of English. So
So you were with all these different people from these different cultures, and you would just basically like walk all day and eat together and
yeah, in the
Hmm.
and you'd pass different people. There's sort of a rhythm of the pace people walk at. You walk silently, and yes, some people you would see frequently and just wave at. Sometimes you'd have a coffee with them at a rest. You're just sort of sharing. You've about
Yeah.
2 changes of clothes. You're carrying what you have, and so your life just becomes very simple.
Hmm.
And then you just are recognizing common humanity. Most people are just trying to walk that day and hope they don't get new blisters. Hope there's a bathroom when you need one. Hope there's a cup of coffee, right? Your life sort of strips down from, in many cases, being very, very complex and busy to just step by step by step. It was a beautiful experience.
And is this an example of something that you did after you had gotten into art journaling that maybe you wouldn't have done before?
I certainly think yes, in that
Hmm.
with the art journaling, there were a lot of images. I like collage. I had a period in collage of people standing on the edge of cliffs and windy paths that went into fog or overhead images of rivers. I think we like to think of a river as like straight because of the way like rivers look on maps, particularly in the US, but you know, rivers are all over the place. And when you see some aerials of what a river looks like and bending back around and those were the symbols that I found, which then made doing something like walking the Camino Santiago for 4 weeks make sense. That this is a path. A colleague of mine, as I was getting ready to leave, gave me a mug about enjoy the process, which is a cliche. We say it frequently. It doesn't mean anything until you live a process. Art journaling is a process, not an outcome. The Camino, although it starts to feel like you need to arrive in Santiago, is really the process of walking. The destination can feel extremely underwhelming, as many things in life do, right? When you work at a goal, whether it's a promotion or something, and you have that terrible letdown when you make it, it's because the enjoyment for us is the process and the learning.
Hmm. After you went through this wonderful trip, where did the creation of the book fit into the journey from there?
It was a few months later. I would love to have said, because I wanted to walk the Camino. This is that forcing. When we want to force things, I wanted to walk the Camino and know what I wanted to do next with my life.
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And part of that being open and curious and self-compassionate is that was okay. I wasn't ready to know. I needed to shed that other identity. So, it was about 6 months after that
Hmm.
when I realized that when I would tell people, whether it was coaching clients or friends about art journaling and suggest it, I recognized I would light up. They would say to me, "Your face lit up." Like,
Hmm.
people are really great mirrors. You're so excited. And it's like, when you're getting that feedback, it's a good idea to challenge yourself. And that's really where it came. Not only, even though I'd said I didn't want to write a book, this is a book I wanted to write because I'm at a stage that it's worth sharing. It is not a complex concept.
Mhm.
It is not expensive. It is not something that needs to or could even possibly be competitive. It is about helping people at this time have some play, getting curious. It really creates a really safe container for the emotions we're not always sure we're even feeling. When people can play with color and symbolism, it really can draw to the surface things that are pretty buried. And then it becomes, I think, a really powerful guide to your soul and to your inner wisdom. But it really does start with that play and curiosity.
Mm. Hmm. Beautiful. Where do you see yourself going from here? What's next for you?
You know, I still am a person who would love to know. I would love to say that I've completely embraced the unknown, but I
Mm.
have not. So
Mm.
I am going to, because there's something here. The book came out this summer and it's picking up steam. The online training, the coaching. There's more gas here. So I want to sort of see where this takes me. I'm not holding any particular image tight. I don't even have the image to hold tight. I have to tell you, there probably is a part of me that if I had the image, I would
Mm.
be making lists all day long trying to achieve it. I would like to say that person's gone, but she's not, and that's okay. I don't have that really clear vision. And then I would say for the next 6 months to year, and I will know when it's time, I may write another book. I really am enjoying helping people and working with clients and doing these workshops and talking about the book. It feels like the service I'm supposed to be doing. And if I ever tell myself, because I've become very good at listening to the negative thoughts, that's part of that really watch and observer, that this in a world that has so many problems, I need to be more serious. I actually, the voice I hear back really strongly, and it comes through the journal, and I hear it is in a world with so many intense things, we actually need some play and some curiosity to be creative enough to move forward. That's the clear message I'm getting
Mm.
when that nasty self-critical voice about, should do more to end world hunger or create peace in the world, which I would love to. I don't know that those are in my circle of influence in this lifetime and in that way. But I think promoting some play and curiosity definitely are, and seeing what comes of that if you have enough people tapping into that kind of energy and the right side of our brains, which are much more holistic.
Mm. If someone wanted to check out your work, you've got this book. It's called Art for Your Sanity, and you have a website that you would like people to see as well. You want to
Yeah.
speak about that
So
for a moment?
sure, you can buy the book anywhere you buy books,
Mm.
right? Person's curious and they love Amazon, you'll find it. But the website has the free downloadable PDF, which is like just how to get started in art journaling. Um, Books there, online training, other videos. There's contact me button for workshops or coaching kind of things. That's the Susan-Hensley.com.
Okay. Great. And your last name is Hensley,
Yes.
for those who don't know.
Yeah.
So it'd be Susan, Susan dash HENSLEY.com.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Susan.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a terrific discussion. I really appreciate it.